Hello everybody and welcome to another Elemental Shaman video. Today we are talking about corruptions, stats, and how this impacts your Elemental Shaman gameplay. There's been a little bit of changes since the introduction to the corruption vendor, I guess. Now Mother in the Heart of Azeroth chamber can sell you corruptions based off of your Echoes of Ny'alotha currency. What this has pretty much allowed Elemental Shamans to do is buy a crap ton of Strike Through and Severe and gear your character according to just pure stats. So in this video, we're going to talk about what that changes with your rotation and your gameplay, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. So stay tuned for more. Let's get it. Alright, so let's first talk about what corruptions we're seeing impact Elemental Shaman mostly now with just pure increased damage. No RNG effects like Twisted Appendage, on proc damage like Infinite Stars, Twilight Devastation, Gushing Wounds, stuff like that. None of that even matters because with today's video, we're going to discuss Strike Through and Severe, and I guess Flash of Insight. So when it comes to what corruptions you kind of want from Mother right now, Strike Through is one of the best, if not arguably the best, corruption for Elemental Shaman, and I'll tell you why. This has to deal with our critical strikes on Elemental Shaman dealing more damage than the average class because of Elemental Fury. So our damaging critical strikes deal 250% damage instead of the usual 200% that other classes have. This taking into account, any additional critical strike damage on top of that just makes it even more powerful. We're adding way more damage to our crits than any other class. Not to mention, Strike Through scales multiplicatively on top of each other instead of additively like other effects might, such as just pure stats. So let's talk about where our stats kind of want to be at when we're doing a Strike Through build and what Azerite we also want to look at getting. Because we're going into a pure stat build with this, you can make this transition once you've gotten your stats up to about, I don't know, a 3-2-1 rule. I say 3-2-1 rule because we say 30% crit, 20% haste, 10% burst. I will always have these numbers at least on my shaman at all times. Anything on top of that is just like cherry on top of a sundae, pretty much. Just additive, bonus. So, I started playing Shaman in 8.3. Well, not started playing Shaman, but as a specific build. I went triple Igneous Potential all the time and triple Natural Harmony, maybe threw in a Tectonic Thunder there with PvP shoulders. But as the Corruption Vendor was introduced and I was able to get more Strike Through, I started to notice that our stats could exponentially be increased past what we had initially thought was obtainable through the Igneous Potential kind of build. When we're increasing our crit value, however, it's not really affecting our Lava Burst damage that much, whereas it would start to affect our Lightning Bolt, Earth Shock, Chain Lightning, and Earthquake spells a lot more than our Lava Burst. So this transitioned us into kind of maybe getting out of Igneous Potential, going more into Lightning Bolt damage with Heart of Darkness. You'll see here I have 3 Heart of Darkness pieces, and this is just giving me additional stats. I'm running a heck ton of Corruption because myself, I can play with the Thing from Beyond relatively well. Probably get hit by it a lot, but you might see a Thunderstorm just randomly pop off my character for no apparent reason, but that's why. So when it comes to switching over from Igneous Potential to Heart of Darkness, we're strictly doing this so we can inflate our stats as much as possible to give our Strike Through and Blood of the Enemy essence windows way more value. When it comes to our AoE burst now with this build, it's insane. Like, it's a huge power spike, I want to say, on par with the amount of damage that you could come out of like a Demon Hunter that's fully decked out with the Maracta's Fang, Blood of the Enemy, Fell Barrage kind of build. I see that a lot now, and it's insane how much damage they can do. I'm pretty sure Elemental Shaman could possibly do more than that now with the amount of damage that we can put out in the essence blood of the enemy burst window. So we'll get into how that looks in a moment, but I want to go back to kind of like what our stats should look like. So as you can see on my character screen here, I have 51% crit unbuffed. I'll get rid of this so that none of my stats get skewed. So 51% crit unbuffed, 22% haste unbuffed, and versatility is at 14%. 34% mastery, but that's mainly because of like the necklace, Heart of Darkness, and some pieces that just have mastery on it, like the back piece as well. So I can't really stop myself from gaining mastery through those. But the amount of crit on my character right now is actually quite high. With food buff, I think I'm at like 52% crit. But I don't really want to go much higher, and I'll tell you why. I have right now a rank 2 severe and a rank 3 severe. Here's my rank 3 severe, and here's my rank 2. I'm gaining a total of 21% additional critical strike from all sources. That includes the food buff, even when I get that. So 52%, I'm at 3396 total critical strike. However, when I'm in combat, my stats are also inflated because of natural harmony. If I do fire damage, I gain additional critical strike. And you might see a pattern here. I also have the essences, blood of the enemy, okay, which will give me a stacking buff that gives me additional haste and crit. On top of that, my weapon enchant is deadly navigation. So you might see that my stats are starting to inflate quite a lot. I'm at 71% crit. I just dropped back down because of a buff running out. But I'll get to a point in my either blood of the enemy stacks or my deadly navigation window where I'm like really high on my crit percentage. And this is important to take into account because in your blood of the enemy window, the debuff that you put on the mobs gives you an additional 25% chance against them to critical strike. So at some point, if you have all of these stats and these buffs rolling, you're actually going to crit cap, which is not really a wasted chance or a waste of damage because the window is only 10 seconds and it's not often where you're crit capping yourself on those targets, but it's something to take into account. So when I look at something like this, I don't think I'm going to go past 2 rank 3 severes. I might upgrade my severe 2 to a severe 3 once I get some more corruption resistance, but I don't think I'm going to go past that because I still have 3 sockets to put on my character, which I'll probably put into crit gems. And there's really just no reason for me to go past that because while I'm in combat, my crit is already so high and I don't really want to crit cap all the time. So that being said, strike through is really, really strong as another source of corruption on your character. We talked a little bit about it with how it's impacting your Elemental Fury passive on Elemental Shaman, but in your blood of the enemy window itself, you will do more damage per corruption rating from your strike through than from your severe. So because it's scaling exponentially and you have a 5-second window when you blooded the enemy where your critical strikes are dealing 25% additional damage. It's the first 5 seconds of the buff. It's actually. So, and increases your critical strike damage to 25%, by 25%, excuse me, for 5 seconds. So that's the first 5 seconds of your blood of the enemy window. That is the most important 5 seconds of your opener in the, like, out of the entire thing. Within those 5 seconds, you can do way more damage by stacking strike through than you can by stacking severe. So let's talk about this for a second. What does this kind of look like? Well, I can put down some earthquakes, I can put out some chain lightnings, but I'll just give you like a crash course of like what it's going to look like if I've done this before. So I'm going to do fire damage first, summon my storm elemental, blood of the enemy, and put down another earthquake. I wish I had a little bit more maelstrom going into that. That would have been the perfect scenario. But on 4 targets, I peaked at around like 450. In a perfect scenario, I would have gotten my 2-chain lightnings in that 5-second blood of the enemy window. But you can even see on 4 targets, like, the amount of damage that's coming out of my Eye of the Storm alone from my Storm Elemental is quite significant. Only on 4 targets, it's at 1.84 million damage, and that's not adding in the Gust of Wind damage or the Call Lightning damage that it's doing from its spell casts. So it's the blood of the enemy window that is making Elemental Shaman so strong right now with burst damage. You could also argue that actually we're probably one of the best classes for Mythic Plus that is very sleeper. Yes, you have Fire Mages. They point at a target, it's gonna freaking die. You have Beast Mastery Hunters that just are constantly outputting damage. But a really high strength about Elemental Shaman with this new patch in the Corruption Vendor that not a lot of people know about is actually our off-healing capabilities. This is something that a lot of people will overlook, but it can save some groups. It's actually saved a lot of healing from the healer itself and allowed the healer to do even more damage, which in some cases can be extremely helpful. In a lot of high pushing keys, healer damage does actually matter. So if you're coupling your insane burst output with your ancestral guidance, they're all of your DPS and your off healing is on a 2-minute cooldown. We're in this 2-minute window, so we're on Use Trinkets on a 2-minute cooldown. Our Storm Elemental's on a 1.9-minute cooldown. We always save Blood of the Enemy for Storm Elemental burst window, and then Ancestral Guidance is on that 2-minute window. So every time you're bursting, you're also doing like insane off healing. It's crazy. If you guys have seen clips from my stream where like I'm doing more healing than the actual healer and the tank itself in some pulls, that's why. Quick plug, twitch.tv/BarackOshama. I stream almost every day. You guys can come and check me there. You can also ask me questions off stream in my Discord down below and my stream. Doing our character, we kind of want to get crit and haste and verse on almost every piece of gear. So I'll quickly showcase what my character looks like for you guys, so I'll give you an idea of like how to gear your character a little bit better with the Strike Through Severe build and triple natural harmony, triple hearted darkness. On my gloves, these are Ego Annihilation grips, so that's from the Nyalotha raid. Crit versatility. We have the Watcher's Scheming Girdle, which is from, I believe, Therapist of N'Zoth, so that's crit versatility as well. I have the Nefarious Tormentor's Greaves, which is from Visions of N'Zoth, so that's haste versatility. Crit versatility boots from Mythic Plus. My Mechagon ring, which is high crit, low haste. And then also the ring from Hivemind, I believe. Mythic Hivemind, crit haste with a socket. I'm currently running Black Dragon Scale because I actually think it's pretty good for the amount of uptime that you have for the haste buff in a key. I think I had it like at 51, 52% uptime throughout the entire dungeon, which is quite substantial. Haste is something that I really, really like having more of than versatility, especially in AoE where I'm just trying to cast as fast as possible. Or even in my burst single target where I'm just trying to cast lightning bolts as fast as possible, my storm elementals out, that extra haste is going to be very, very valuable. You could also play with Vita, but build like a junkyard where I need a lot of my zap damage, or I know more people in the group are running Vita and we could buff up each other's extra haste a little bit more. So that's the kind of time that I would actually switch to Vita. Other than that, you could also run Psyche Shredder, but that's not really what we're trying to look at here. The PvP trinket is probably one of the most important pieces of gear in your Elemental Shaman arsenal and your burst window. The PvP trinket itself, I think, is the best one, in my opinion, because of the amount of stats, primary stat that you get from it. It's increasing your base damage. Whereas, like, if you look at the trinket, where is it? If you look at Manifesto of Madness, yes, it gives you a lot of crit and it gives you some versatility, but the windows of those buffs don't necessarily line up with what you're trying to accomplish in your burst window. Like, if I could get the versatility within my burst window, I think that would be a lot better for utilizing the trinket in that burst window. But the crit is kind of not really that viable because I'm already crit capping in my burst window because of the blood of the enemy. So I don't really need to run the manifesto in that situation. If you don't have another trinket though, the manifesto is pretty easy to get. You can get it from Heroic Nazoth. I believe it's like 470 item level. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown, lines up with blood of the enemy, will give you a little bit more oomph to your burst while you're gearing. And you can still run the build pretty effectively. But the other trinkets that are a little bit better would obviously be the Gladiator's Badge and the other PvP trinket on use that gives you versatility. I also have the Bulwark of Brimming Potential, which has a strike through 3 on it, crit versatility, and obviously the Drestigath weapon, Flash of Insight. This is really, really good because of your burst window and how it works with your Corrupted Gladiator's Badge. Obviously, this gives you intellect, right? So your buff itself, intellect increased by 5%. Well, when I have this buff up, I'm also gaining an additional 5% from that buff, just from the Flash of Insight buff. It's really, really strong because of that. And if you look at how it sims point per point, if you don't need the stats from Severe, the Flash of Insight per corruption rating is actually one of the best ones out there for Elemental Shaman. So sim better than like a Mythic 475 weapon with strike through 3 on it. So check your own sims, see what works best for you, but a Mythic 475 Drestigath weapon is probably your best scenario. And then of course I have my bracers, which is going to be my next upgrade I'm looking at, which is the crit haste strike through 3. So you can see a pattern here. I'm pretty much only going for crit haste, verse haste, or crit versatility gear. Versatility is one of my lowest rated values, but I'm still at 14%, and Blood of the Enemy, or not Blood of the Enemy, but Heart of Darkness and Vision of Perfection Minor give me the versatility that I need in order to be past that like 10% benchmark that I want to be at least. So if you guys have any questions regarding kind of like when you should be switching from the Igneous Potential build over to the Heart of Darkness build, I'm not saying that the Igneous Potential build is not viable. It's actually really, really good in a high haste scenario, like multi-target cleave. If you're running Igneous Potential and triple Lava Shock builds with expedient corruptions, that's really, really good for Elemental Shaman in a multi-target scenario. However, when we are looking at overall in Mythic Plus, the Heart of Darkness build excels at both single target burst damage with cooldowns. Regular single target isn't that bad, and our AoE is way higher than any Igneous Potential build that you would have played in Keys. However, there is couple scenarios that I will switch from this build over to an Igneous Potential build, and that would be during a fortified week in dungeons where your mob densities are only like 2 to 3 mob pulls. Examples of that would be in Workshop, for instance, or King's Rest, or the group needs a lot more single target priority build or priority damage within mob pools. Priority targets, meaning Bloodswarmers in the Underrot. If you do not have a lot of priority target damage in your group, consider switching over to an Igneous Potential build to help your group with that priority target damage. Other than that, I think the Heart of Darkness build is extraordinary and should definitely be tested out more and looked at more as a way more viable option to bring into high Mythic Plus keys. I'm already doing a lot more higher damage just from switching over to this build, and it's insane the amount of increase that I've got. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe if you want more Elemental Shaman content. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions or concerns about the build, or want to talk about anything else, like my cat Loki, who is awesome and very furry. Anyway, guys, again, if you want to catch my stream, twitch.tv/BarackShaman, my social medias will be down there as well. And until next time, keep calm and Maelstrom on. Bye-bye.